Good morning. My name is Annelies, and I am from Belgium. And I'm from a place which is called Ghent. And I don't know if you know, but Ghent has recently been nominated by The Lonely Planet as one of the 10 best kept secrets on Earth. So 10 cities you really have to visit, next to Paris and New York. So I thought, since this is a truly international conference, maybe it's time to make some publicity for my city. Having said that, of course we are here this morning not to talk about Ghent, but about the topic of my presentation, which is Beyond the Hype, the Entrance of Social Media. I think over the last couple of years, we all have been bombarded with information on the rise of social media, and many of us have jumped on the social media bandwagon. Today, I think we are at the point that we can look back and actually see what has social media brought to us. Is it really that valuable as was promised, or was it just a hype? If I look at social media and research, well, basically what have we done? Over the last couple of years, we have first looked at the tools of social media. For instance, we have implemented research communities, which makes use of forum technology. We have applied blog research, which makes use of blogs. So we have adapted the toolbox mainly of social media. Next to that, for a long time, we have denied the content, and basically user-generated content is very interesting to look at. So the idea here was to see what can we learn from what people are spontaneously mentioning on social media. Studying user-generated content is actually appealing for a lot of reasons. First of all, I think it really gives you the opportunity to take a listening approach. On social media, consumers are in control. They determine what the topic is going to be about, and you, as a company, can just listen. So, as a result, also often you discover that people are talking about things that you did not expect. So, social media can be a great source for insight generation. Also, I think that social media can give you access to consumer language. You can see how people are talking, what words do they use, what are they communicating, in what kind of style. So you can learn a lot of that as well. Also, information on social media is there and stays there, and this makes it particularly suitable for trend watching. So you can go back 1 year, 2 years in time, and actually look at the evolutions. For me, personally, over the last couple of years, I had a lot of fun with analyzing social media. And I've been very enthusiastic next to other market researchers and marketeers. I did a lot of what we call social media ethnography studies, and I must say, I thought it was a fantastic time. However, when I talk to other practitioners, I've noticed that they are not always so enthusiastic as I am, and they did not necessarily found out a lot of value out of social media. They say, well, it's not that interesting, we tried it before, but it's not really giving us what we thought it would. So they are kind of a little bit disappointed. And it's a bit, one of the reasons I think that's the cause of this disappointment is the fact that in this industry, there are no really good guidelines that are always followed. I think if you want to apply and dig into user-generated buzz, you should really follow a rigorous research approach. It's like building a house of cards, which is not a solid house, and therefore it can easily fall apart. So for this presentation, I've come up with some rules that can help you to prevent this from happening. So let's have a look. The first one really is that, well, people still keep on thinking that social media buzz is representative. And of course, that's not the case. I know as researchers we used to think in terms of representativeness for a country, for a certain target group, but the fact is, at social media, you do not know who is talking. Okay, in a small percentage of the cases, you have an idea and people mention something on their identity, but it's not representative research. So therefore, also do not expect it to be representative. Related to that as well, if it's not representative for people, how should we do the sampling then? Well, basically, I think it's important to realize that the new unit of analysis are conversations. We're not longer sourcing or sampling participants or consumers, we're sampling opinion, conversations. This brings us to rule number 2. Basically, sampling is still key. And here I would like to maybe come up with a bit of a statement, but often I hear the comments that people say, well, okay, we're going to do a social media study and we will scrape all the online conversations who are there. Well, I did a small calculation, and if you want to scrape all conversations, well, here are some numbers on the size of the internet. There are more than 200 billion websites. There are over 100 billion blogs, and these are just numbers from 2009. So the internet is too big to have all conversations on a topic. So basically, the result is that sampling is still key, and you still need to make a smart sample. You cannot capture the whole internet. So how to move forward? Well, another thing why people are disappointed is because many people just buy social media from third parties. Today in our industry we have new data farmers, if you can call it. These are online catalogs that basically sell user-generated content to third parties. Typically what they do is they have like a limited set, like a list of websites that they track on a continuous basis, and they sell those data. As I said, there's nothing wrong with using an online catalog, but of course the limitation is that you are limited to what's inside and what's present in this online catalog. For instance, I'm from Belgium. We speak 2 languages. One of them is Dutch, and Dutch is not so popular in online catalogs. So whenever I want to do a study in Dutch, I will notice that I will miss out quite some content. So this means don't only rely on online catalogs, don't only buy data, but also have a critical look and maybe look if you have to do some additional scraping yourself. Third reason why it can go wrong, well, this is an issue we all know as researchers, it's data quality. Basically, it's not the case that, well, if you have found the conversations, you can immediately use them for your analysis. You should carefully clean your data. Let's have a look at this example here, and I think a known one is duplication. If you look at this forum thread that you see here, you see that, well, the original comment is repeated in every comment that the person is making. So as a result, it's counted every time. This is an example of something you should clean, and there's more to that than just repeated comments. It can also be spam bots that are making your data dirty. So data quality is another reason. Well, if you don't have the right sources and the sources that are clean enough, of course you will have crappy data and you will not get to insights. These were already 3 rules, and I think the most important one is coming here, and this is the final one, and this is goal orientation. Next to the whole methodological process, often the issue is that, while at the beginning of a social media research study, the client does not really know what he wants to get out of it. It's a bit like somebody who would come to you and say, I want to conduct a survey. Typically, you also say, okay, I want to conduct a survey on topic A, on topic B, these are my goals. But for one or the other reason, I think that there's not enough information yet on social media research, and people just come to you and say, okay, I want to learn something with social media. So I think it's our job to really help our clients and give them that guidance. And let me share with you some of the options that you can do. So a first way in which you can use social media and user-generated buzz is insight generation and ID generation. And here I would like to share an example that I have presented for an SMR conference, and it's on aging. It's basically what is the impact of getting old on day-to-day life. To do so, we actually jumped into online conversations that were generated by elderly themselves, but also by caregivers who are taking care of their aging parents. And here, if you want to do insight generation, the idea is really not to ask questions yourself to the data, but bottom up to see how can I best summarize my conversations. So here you see an example of the results. So basically what you do is you determine the main themes that are apparent in the buzz, which you see here, and then you rank them according to 2 axes. The one is the buzz volume, so how much are people talking about this topic online, and the other one is sentiment, so how positive or negative are those topics. By ranking them on the two axes, you can set priorities. For instance, themes that appear in the dark red area, well, these are things that are very big and very negative. So these are attention points. Things that appear in the more positive or green space, well, these are things that you can leverage as a brand. The idea here for insight generation is that often you see themes popping up that you did not expect yourself. So then, for instance, telephone call can be something that is quite unexpected. So that can then generate and lead to an insight. Once you have done that, you also do some more qualitative deep dives. For instance, you see that the theme eating has been put it a little bit bigger, and so let's have a look in there what's behind it. And here you see within eating, well, basically based on more advanced text analytics and also qualitative analysis, you can find out that for elderly people, eating is mainly about enjoying life. At a certain moment they decide not to diet anymore, so they eat whatever they want, and also often they go in the afternoon to eat something, and well, they just see it as a form of entertainment. There are two issues with that, of course. Well, basically, if you get old, you get some health problems, so things like diabetes prevent you from eating what you want. And also, when you get really old, you have trouble with chewing and swallowing. This is one aspect, but the other aspect, and that I personally found myself very insightful, is that, well, basically when you get old, your appetite is decreasing, and you don't feel like eating that much. And basically one of the main causes that was discussed online is that your taste is altering over age. So you don't like the same things anymore that you did before, so the food is not adapted to what older people are needing or wanting. So this is an example of, I would say, using online buzz for insight generation. If I look at ID generation, which is related, well, often, and this is not too much, but often when you do your analysis, you find a really good suggestion from one of the posters that is really mentioning a great product ID. And that, of course, in that case, it's also wise to capture that and share that with your clients. So maybe it can form inspiration for new product development. For instance, here in the same aging conversations, we found a whole thread of people discussing ready-to-eat meals. And what they found out is that, well, on ready-to-eat meals, often what you would think in the supermarket that they would be very suitable for older people because they're small portions, you do not need to prepare them anymore. But in fact, what was found is that people don't think that the content of ready-to-eat meals is adapted. It's often food that is not appealing to them, like Asian food. Well, a Belgian grandmother would not know how that would be tasting, so she would not be appealed by it. And also, another thing is that because of the health problems, you need to take care and pay attention to what you can eat. So people need to be able to read very good on the packaging what is in it. And this is the labeling of the packaging of ready-to-eat meals is not clear at all. So this is a very concrete suggestion that can also help you. But generally, you find a couple of them in user-generated buzz, but not that much. So that was one application. Another research question that you can answer with user-generated buzz is on branding. It's online brand reputation and competitive image. Let me show an example here from a category ice cream. This is really an example I created. Basically, what we did there is we had a look at a small set of social media sources where people were discussing ice cream. And the first thing that we always do when we want to conduct a brand analysis is really looking, okay, to what extent are people within a category even speaking about brands? Because as marketeers, this can be a very strong focus, but looking to what extent the brands are represented in the category can already be an interesting finding. For instance, for ice cream, we typically see that this is about 1 in 4 conversations, and this is, I must say, average for a lot of categories. So 1 in 4 of the ice cream conversations was branded, and then of course we can have a look, okay, which brand is most mentioned in the ice cream conversation. So in this case you see that this is Ben & Jerry's and followed by Breyers. Once you have done that, it's of course interesting to deep dive into, okay, what are people saying about a certain brand? And an interesting tool here is sentiment analysis. So in sentiment analysis, you're going to look what attitudes, what positive or negative emotions are people using when they're talking about a certain brand. For instance, here you see 2 brands, Ben & Jerry's and Breyers. For both of them, I've indicated the emotionality, so to what extent or their emotions, percentage positive and negative emotions, and it also indicates the average rating review site. So how many stars does this brand get on a review site? You see immediately that Ben & Jerry's and Breyers both have a lot of positive mentions, but for Breyers you also see quite some large negative mentions, and this is also reflected in the average rating review score. So basically, when you observe a thing like this, then you can go and look again to the raw data and see why is this the case. So let's have a look for Breyers. What is the reason behind this lower sentiment? Well, basically, Breyers, why is it positive in the States? It has a very strong tradition, and some of the flavors are really legendary. Has a lot of fans online, and people really speak about trust in the brand. However, when you look at the weaknesses, recently a lot of consumers have reported a decrease in quality, and basically this was caused by the fact that they say, okay, Breyers has changed its claim to natural, and as a result it has removed all the artificial substances that were in the ice. And because of that they did that, the taste has altered, the texture has altered, and people also have the impression that now the boxes of the ice cream are smaller and that they have chosen profit above quality. So this is a very small example how you can use user-generated content for branding. Finally, let me show another example on communication. Of course, you can have a look, where are people talking about my brand. You can have a look, okay, what type of social media are most popular, what URLs do I need to be at. But one thing you can do as well is you can use online buzz for studying the effect of your campaigns. Here is an example of Intel. So Intel are the computer chips, and well, a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, Intel was very known because it was really, well, they did something remarkable with their chip there. The Intel chip is, I'd say, a very known concept. However, what Intel noticed is that young people don't see that anymore like that. They are so used to the fact that, well, the chips are there and the Intel chips is there that they don't see it anymore as something special. So therefore, Intel set up the Creators Project, and that's actually an online activation campaign where people are stimulated to upload on an online platform videos on, for instance, what music that they made with their computers, can be art that they made with their computer. So basically, the aim is that you upload creative stuff that you have made with your computer that was powered by an Intel chip. In order to evaluate this campaign, we used online buzz. So we had a look, okay, what are people saying about this campaign, and a couple of measures that you can use. The first one, for instance, is activation. We found out that about 2,000 posts were sent about this campaign, not 2,000 posts that people were using or people that were participating in the Creators Project, but 2,000 references to this campaign. So one result is that the campaign caused at least some buzz on the internet. In terms of evaluation, so we also checked when people were talking about the Creative Project and making buzz about the project, what was the evaluation? Well, basically, in general, people were very positive. Almost all the comments that were made on the initiative, well, they were almost all positive. There are, however, also two other things. When you want to test a campaign online, you want to see, well, did the message came across? Did Intel succeeded to convince people that Intel is more than just a chip, that it is an innovative brand that helps to shape the future and that really came with something imaginary or something fantastic. So when we see that this message did not really came across, we saw that things like music, art came across, but not really innovation or future. And in brand fit, that's the last one. Well, basically people, when they were talking on the Creative Project, they were not so much talking about Intel. They were often referring to no brand. So the brand fit was unfortunately not so good. To wrap up, well, basically, as I said, social media, for me, I think it has been fantastic, and it's definitely not a hype. It's a valuable source of information if you use it in the right ways. And with this presentation, I hope to come up with some guidelines, some things that you need to pay attention to when you are conducting social media research. I think as an industry, it's also our task to educate more our clients on what they can use it for and how you can apply it. We need to move away from building houses with cards, and actually we need to build castles like this, which really with strong methods that really lead to valuable results. And I think just as a wrap up for people who are not convinced in my intro on my Ghent being like the best kept secret, well, here you see one of the nice fortresses in the city center, so maybe that can convince you. Bye, and thank you for listening.